Now, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. So let me explain. First off, it's free. I'm not joking, you guys. The Anchor app, it is free to use. Second, there's creation tools that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Now that's awesome, isn't it? Third, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere, you guys, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and so many more platforms. Fourth, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Now, is that awesome, you guys, or what? That's just terrific. And finally, it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So I have another podcast with Anchor, and I'm just loving Anchor so much. I love it. It's so very easy to use, guys. So why don't you download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. What's up, you guys, and welcome to the official podcast of Damian Talks Education. So listen up. I am here to talk about all things education on my podcast. So get prepared for some realness and honesty of education as I walk you down through various of topics that's happening in the education world with some amazing guests, to sharing stories relating to education and so much more, because I got you covered with education. So join me on this journey of education with me. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another live episode of Damian Talks Education. So thank you guys so much for tuning in with me for this episode here. So my first guest is a 5th grade teacher from Dixiana, South Carolina. He graduated from Airport High School in 2015, and he also believes that teaching is the best way that he can currently impact his community as a 5th grade teacher. So everyone, please welcome on to the podcast, Mr. Micah Graydon. So let's bring him on now, you guys. Hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I am great. Thank you for coming on to my podcast. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, no problem.
So let's get started here with you telling my audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so hey y'all, my name is Micah Graydon. I'm a 23-year-old 5th grade teacher from Dixiana, South Carolina. This is my first year teaching. In 2019, I received my Bachelor's of Arts from Clemson University, and just this past May, I received my Master's in Education from the same institution, Clemson University. I'm a proud member of the Call Me Mr. program. Some of y'all may or may not have heard of it. And yeah, just first year teacher out here trying to teach in the middle of a pandemic. That's all.
Mm-hmm. So how is that all going out for you during this time?
I'd say this has been the most challenging experience I've ever experienced in my life, honestly. There's everybody's district, even within the same county, isn't necessarily doing the same thing. The instructional models are different. Districts are deciding to handle certain situations differently with percentage of cases, positive rates, and incentives for teachers, trying to boost morale. It's just a whirlwind, and so it's kind of frustrating at times when you see a district that might be making a decision that maybe you side with a little bit more versus your own district, and then vice versa, like, oh man, I feel for those teachers in that district because here it might not, be as bad. So honestly, that coupled with just trying to learn how to really teach on your own is just insanely tough.
Yeah. So I want to ask you this here. What inspired you of wanting to become an educator in the first place? Did it quite run in your family?
Oh, nah. So, well, yeah, it doesn't really run in my family. I'm actually the first teacher, I would like to say. And I don't refer to myself as an educator yet because, I mean, by definition, an educator is one that teaches something well. So I try to keep the bar a little bit high for myself. So I still refer to myself as a teacher, at least personally. But I appreciate the title. Um, I decided that, like a lot of other people, I wanted to help my community.
Right.
And so in high school, I really felt like, as an educational community, my high school wasn't really doing enough to help my peers really excel or at least just succeed um, at their own rate or in their own eyes. So I felt like, okay, well, what do I have that I can offer my community that could possibly, maybe not exactly help my peers, or possibly at least help my peers, but also help their kids as well so that they don't have to repeat this cycle. And so initially I was like, oh, I'll be a PE teacher, like I play football, so yeah, maybe I'll teach strength and conditioning. I lift weights pretty well and whatever. But then I realized that I didn't want to necessarily get pigeonholed as, just the black guy that's the PE teacher and stuff like that. So then I narrowed it down to social studies. I was like, oh yeah, I really love history. I love history. But then I realized that was still kind of a coach role. Every coach pretty much is a history teacher. I was like, I need to go beyond that. And so I enrolled in the Clemson initially as a history teacher. And then I was kind of trying to avoid the Call Me Mister program, actually, because at Clemson, you can't really be a secondary history teacher while being in the program.
Right.
So one of my Mr. brothers actually worked in the admissions office and kind of was having a conversation with my mom. And so eventually, basically, I accepted the role of being a Mister. And so with that, I feel like my mission has expanded beyond what I initially thought. And so now I don't really just always think about, oh, well, it's got to be the older kids. Like I really got to help these kids right before they transition into adulthood. But we have this whole understanding of, excuse me, this whole understanding and concept of we're trying to provide a prevention, kind of like a net to catch students before they go past the point of I wouldn't say no return, but to the point that it's extremely hard to help them realize their faults and put them on the path that is going to help them be effective or successful. So that's pretty much why I chose to be a teacher, because of my ideals and my hopes that I could possibly improve my community through what little I could at least offer back to it.
Right. Right. And I want to hear your opinion on this here. I came across on this today on Instagram. Mr. Adfred Chevy Brooks at Call Me Chevy. He posted about black male teachers can do more than gym and discipline. He also put that black men in education can do more than discipline or teach your sports. We can't do it all. So, what do you think of this here? Because I've been hearing a lot like with black male teachers, they place us as the disciplinarian. Why is that you think of that?
So that's ironic. Right before I joined the meet, I actually read that post. So another mister had actually shared it. And so the reason why I think that they place all the disciplinarian roles upon us is that we're in a profession where predominantly the demographics are, especially at my level, are white females. And a lot of these white females are from at least middle class or higher cultural backgrounds. They don't, especially at a school where I'm at, a Title I school with a highly diverse population, a lot of black and brown children, they don't have those same cultural experiences as their students. And so the lack of cultural experiences, the lack of mannerisms, language, culture, it hinders their ability to build relationships with them. And so they're phenomenal educators, but all that great teaching falls on deaf ears because they don't have the relationships established with their students to even get them to listen to them. And so we come into schools and they see us as this beacon of hope because, okay, here's somebody that looks like my students. They possibly have similar opportunities, experiences, and hopefully they can show their students that there are opportunities beyond what they possibly are seeing at home or in their community. So they jump them all on us. Or like for instance, consistently this year, I've always had the largest roster, even with a school that has the highest amount of students that are participating in the virtual format for education. So like right now, even with I think almost like half of the fifth grade outside of the school learning, learning virtually, or at least it's like a third or a quarter. I still have the largest class. I've had the largest class consistently all year. And I just received my 21st student on Monday, which isn't necessarily a large class, but it's a large class for a school that is adopting both versions of an instructional model. So that's the reason why I don't think that they've kind of figured out, well, some people haven't necessarily figured out how to not necessarily have the same cultural experiences as someone else, but to be able to, sympathize with those people. With not those people, but their students. Also, let me see, I don't want to ramble too much. We're as African Americans, we're placed in a society where we're minorities. So we constantly have to figure out how to navigate our society and code switch and figure out what is our culture in relation to the mainstream culture and how to switch back and forth. But when you're a part of the main culture and you're not forced to switch, then you don't understand what it's like to have to adjust until you get put into a situation where you don't have any cultural experiences that align with your students or your peers at that. So that's why, I mean, definitely have a couple of kids with IEPs. I have behavioral disruptions on a daily basis. I have a student that doesn't speak English. I mean, I got a lot on my plate and I have a lot of kids in class, but they just try to see us as they'll be able to deal with them type of person as us.
That's interesting there. And I want to hear your thoughts on this here as well. President Joe Biden, he wants to reopen schools back up safely in the next 100 days. And by then, I think that some schools will be closed within the 100 days. So what's your thoughts on what he is planning on doing there? Are you with him on this, or what do you think?
Well, I don't want to speak too much on a situation that I feel like I haven't researched enough. I saw briefly an article that mentioned that plan. What do you mean by some schools actually be finished or released within 100 days?
Well, if he does it now, it will probably over here we get out in May. So if he does it now, then it will already be, our school will be closed by then. So
Okay. So right now I'm looking at a final day of June 18th. And like I said, right now I'm teaching in person. So sometimes even with the hot topics and the debates with what's going on in education right now, I kind of have to turn a deaf ear to it because of what my district is doing. They're doing stuff that's completely opposite than a lot of other districts. So in regards to him trying to open schools within 100 days, I just don't think it's feasible. I don't. You have vaccines that are slowly rolling out in waves, a potential shortage that they see forthcoming. You have a new strand of the virus from the UK and Africa that's finding its way around the world. I don't see how it's feasible, but at the same time, the government has been pushing and forcing for such things to happen. And then places like places like where I am in such a conservative state overall, I mean, the local government is pretty much going to do whatever they want, unfortunately, unless school board members are highly opposed or they have a lot of parental influence that's just really against it. So I don't think that across the board is realistic. It sounds good. The Biden administration has been doing a lot of things that sound good, like getting rid of some privately funded prisons with an executive order, I think yesterday or the day before, but really it doesn't have a large impact. So, it sounds good, but at the end of the day, with the mindset of people's health and safety,
Mhm.
whether they open or not, is not in, I don't think, our best interest.
Um, so what do you think? Where do you see the future of education right after this pandemic here once, because this will once be over with sooner or later. But do you think, since what we're doing now with distant learning and virtual, do you think once after this pandemics are over with, we will be using this somehow? We will continue on using this into our classroom. Do you think of that? Where do you see the future of education at?
I mean, technology integration is such a highly pushed concept in our classrooms. I mean, it's inevitable. Uh, how do I see that really being implemented? One thing I did like about being virtual was that I held virtual office hours with my students. So they could always just pop in, ask for help, or just a lot of times just hang out. And I think that the virtual aspect of things, teachers are understanding, okay, well, when you're prepping lessons online, there's some things that you definitely can't do that you would do in person. That makes it much more difficult, but there are positive aspects to being able to use a virtual platform. So I think that those certain components of it will transfer over well because teachers understand that some things can be done virtually that can't be done in person and vice versa. Um, and you're just talking about from like using those components as like within your classroom
Yes.
specifically. Yeah, within the classroom, yeah, I think, I mean, that's very vague, but yeah, depending on the teacher, some people really, really like virtual, some people not so much.
So here's what I want to ask you this here about our education system. If you could possibly do anything of how we should change, improve it better, what would you do? And for me, I've been hearing seeing a lot lately on Instagram about defunding standardized testing. I don't know if you have been seeing that quite lately, but I've been seeing that. And also with us, we need more black males into education, into this field. So what about you? What would you like to improve? What would you like to do to change our education system?
Uh, ooh, um, man, my view of it is kind of jaded because of the position I'm in right now. So I'm trying to like decipher between what's based off of my personal situation and what would be good for all. I guess I'll start from a perspective of the retention, well, the attraction and retention of black male educators and education. That will only come through honestly. Ooh, man. Well, all right. So for me, being from a lower middle class background, when I went to college initially, before I even went, I was thinking, okay, I need a degree that's going to allow me to make money, allow me to take care of myself because I don't want to put myself in a position that, my parents or at least my mom was in because she has 2 degrees and doesn't make much money. But if you really want male educators in education, it's going to take funding, like through a program like Call Me Mister. You got to create a bridge to it. And then also, there needs to be an incentive. And so that incentive is an incentive that all educators need. We need more money. We need more money. I'm not saying that we have to start off at $80,000 a year, at least where I live. I mean, the cost of living isn't very expensive here in South Carolina, but I'm not saying we have to start off with so much money, but we need an increase in salary. And then also when you're in the classroom, there needs to be consistent funding within the classroom. Also, from a structural standpoint, we need to figure out how to not fund schools based off of property taxes. Because I mean, where I am, I'm slightly outside of the capital of our state, in one of the cities surrounding it. But I mean, if I go down 15 minutes down the road, I'm in my house right now. I live in a suburban neighborhood, but if I go 10, 15 minutes down the road, I mean, I can see a farm, fields. So the tax bracket from where I am compared to where they are is completely different. And people notice, whether they understand how the school is funded or not, that the schools down there don't have the same opportunities, quality of educators, and materials and facilities as a place where I am. So, for one, figuring out how to fund education better is more important. Education needs more money. And then, second, once you get me in the classroom, I need real support. And so, I don't need to be too overwhelmed by things. I need stuff that's clear cut, simple, dry. I need to be able to come in, do my job, do it well, understand how I need to prepare, and go home and take care of that. So, I mean, like this year, at the beginning of this year, I had a panic attack. Like I literally felt like I was having a heart attack for 3 days straight. So that that whole experience helped me realize like how stressful teaching really is. So I didn't come into teaching thinking that it was just gonna be a cakewalk. Like some people, they think it's their fallback careers, but I didn't anticipate it being as absolutely insane as it was. Added that I am teaching in the middle of a pandemic, so that was tough to figure out how to navigate as well. So honestly, funding, realizing what are the important components to teaching that we need to keep, and what is the extra frill and stuff on top that's just honestly making people stressed and not necessarily making students actually learn any better or making them any more intelligent. Um, and I think there just needs to be more incentives for more diversity within the field, whether it's black male educators or male educators of any other races or diversities and diverse backgrounds. It's just you have to incentivize it, because most people that are getting a bachelor's degree, you're paying over $100,000 for a degree. They're not seeking a field that's going to pay them $40,000 a year. And then even me with a master's degree, I mean, I'm making almost $44,000 before taxes. So that's why I think to increase it, I hate to say it, but it's the money from salary perspective to funding perspective.
Yes, I totally agree with you on that there. Now, my final question for you, to leave off with here, since I am a future educator, and so are some of my listeners out here, what advice would you give to me and to my listeners who want to go, and to anyone else out there who want to go into this profession, but quite don't have the right route to go down on, and for us to get back on track? So what's your advice to us to go into this profession, and also with
Uh,
black male?
Elaborate on right route, if you don't mind.
They may be stuck. They may do not know which direction to turn. They may are considering they do want to go into this profession, but they quite on the other hand, it's like, should I do this for a living?
The only way you're gonna last in this profession, and this goes for me too, I gotta take my own advice, is if you begin it with a purpose. If education is not the reason why you are doing what you do every day, if the students aren't the reason, if the community isn't the reason, no matter where you go, where you teach, if you are not dedicated to the purpose of educating, and I know this is so broad, then it's not for you. It's not a fallback job. It's not just something that, oh, I'll just make a little money, get in and get out. It's not gonna be worth your time. So for people that really think that, oh, well, I'm kind of on the fence about it, if it's not really in your heart and you don't feel like you're dedicated to what you understand that you're doing, or if you don't really understand the depth of what you're trying to do as an educator and its importance to the community, don't do it. Because when you get those hard days, like I said, I had a panic attack on I think the second week of classes. Like, if you're not grounded in that, then that's an automatic ticket. Oh, I'm gone. Like, I'm gonna figure out something. I got a degree. I'm gonna be gone. Like, I can do something else. But if you have that grounding, that's what's gonna keep you there. That's what's gonna keep you motivated. That's what's gonna bring you back every day and make them wake you up every day, knowing that your students need a person like you, and that you are truly making a difference in their lives, something that someone else can't. can't possibly do. Um, yeah, just keep your why, keep your focus. And honestly, you have to ask yourself, what is my why before you try to navigate and go into any profession? Because you might ask yourself that, and it might misdirect you, and that's good because you don't want to necessarily get in a place where you feel like you're letting people down, or you're letting yourself down, or the career becomes so overwhelming for you that you just want out. So for people that are aspiring educators, make sure that you are asking yourself, why am I doing this? And then also, um, from more of a academic or pedagogical perspective, take time, especially as you matriculate and get towards graduating and actually starting to consider jobs. Start to consider what the real workload, of a teacher is. Like I just did a 12-hour day, and I'm really not finished. Like I still have stuff to do. If you're one of those type of people that you just want to always have stuff that's just completely done, it's not necessarily a job. Now it's manageable if you learn how, but you have to set boundaries for yourself, have good time management skills, and understand how you're going to create a weekly structure for yourself that's going to work so you don't just consistently burn yourself out. Because this job, it can become very overwhelming, especially depending on how you teach, where you teach, and the structure in which they want you to use to teach. So sometimes I think, especially with us as African American males and stuff, and even just black and brown people in education in general, people hype us up like, oh yeah, you're gonna make a difference. Oh yeah, that's great. And that sounds nice and everything, but at the end of the day, when you close that door, you still have to teach math, science, ELA, social studies, and life skills, and you have to be prepared for that. So just taking time to understand, what is this going to require from me? How can I manage it in a way that's not going to make me go crazy? And is this something that I feel like I can do and be consistent at? And really think about all those components before you really think about truly stepping into the classroom. Because sometimes I'm like, man, I did not anticipate this being like this. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have prepared better or listened more during college during this and that. So yeah, I'd say two things. Make sure you have your why and really understand what's going to be required of you once you become a full-time classroom teacher.
Yes, yes. Thanks for those words, for those advice out there to all of us. So thank you so much for agreeing to come into my podcast here. Great episode here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Hold up 1 second, if you don't mind, if you're not
Yes.
too busy. Let me see. I see there's some comments from Mr. Debbie Deb. He commented a couple of times. I don't know if he's still in here. But I like it. He said it's hard to get teachers to come into a field that doesn't pay and the work isn't respected. Very true. Sometimes it is, but you can live a modest life being a teacher. It's not luxurious, but decent. Certain districts pay and respect educators, find where you belong. For me, the district I'm in is the district I grew up in, so I feel very committed to it. So I didn't try to, money hunt necessarily. They pay decently, and then also I just bought this house that I'm sitting in back in October. So that was a great opportunity for me. I'm a little stretched with money, but also my fiance is still in school. So that's also, that's something that's fixable. And yeah, thank you for saying great talk, Mr. Debbie Deb. I appreciate it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. So where can my listeners follow you on social media?
Oh, you can follow me at Mr. Graydon here on Instagram. All my little handles are really shit. I'm only on 2 forms of social media, or 3 technically. You can follow me here at Mr. Graydon, or you can friend me on Facebook. My first name is Micah, Micah, Graydon, Graydon. And then the same thing on Snapchat. I'm not very active at all. I just kind of lurk. But yeah, if you want to follow me or talk to me or whatever, follow up. That's cool.
Yes. So thank you so much. And um, I will talk with you very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.